Hello and welcome back everyone to the latest episode of An American in Thailand, airing every Friday. This program is broadcast from Ratchamakon University of Technology, Peranakan, and I will bring it to you in two parts. For the first part, I will introduce a certain topic about being an American here living in Thailand. It could be about food, travel, culture, a lot of other things. We'll then take a break, and in the second part of the program, we'll get into examples and more specifics of the topic. Okay, let's get to the program. Welcome everyone, my name is Gary Gray, and I am your host for An American in Thailand. I'm an American, of course, English teacher here in Thailand, working at Ratchamakon University of Technology, Peranakan. I've been here for about 8.5 years, so that's long enough that I feel like I have a pretty good feel for Thai culture. I certainly don't know everything. I'm still learning some things. I think, for example, with the scheduled program I have for next week, I am worried I might get a few things wrong. I hope not. So I'm still learning. I'm still learning the Thai culture. But I think I know enough that I can kind of speak to the differences between the American culture and the Thai culture. So we're going to do a little bit of an interesting episode today. We're not going to really talk about the difference in culture, although it is a little bit because it's the way we're defining something. We're defining it differently than America than we do in Thailand. And what it is we're going to talk about the differences in seasons between America and Thailand. And especially summer. Now, this is a very weird topic. What do I mean we're talking about the difference in seasons? I mean, we've already done a couple episodes on weather. Of course, it's generally hotter in Thailand. I've told you that occasionally it can actually be hotter in parts of America, even though you think of Thailand as a really hot country. In fact, Bangkok is rated as being the hottest city in the world by the World Meteorological Organization. That's hard to think it could possibly be because there are so many other hot places, especially in deserts. But in deserts, it tends to get cooler at night. So Bangkok is actually rated as the hottest city in the world. So what am I talking about? We all have summer. It's the hot season. So what do I mean by the difference in summer? Okay, so here's what I mean. When I moved here to Thailand, one of the things that surprised me was when I heard people refer to summer as being March, April, and May. Meanwhile, in America, it's considered to be June, July, August mostly. Some people might say July, August, September. Most people traditionally call it June, July, and August. Technically, and this is why some people will say July, August, and September, technically most of June is in spring, and much of September is still part of summer. So, some people might say June, July, August, September. Okay, that's fine. June, July, August, September, something like that. And here's why I was confused about why Thailand was doing this, why Thailand was defining it this way. Because technically, since we are both north of the equator, since this program is kind of used for learning English, I don't want to use too many difficult words. I'm guessing you know what the equator is, since it's a common term in geography, but it's basically the center line of the Earth from north to south. Okay, so Thailand and the United States are both north of that. So technically, because we're both north of that, summer is June 21st to September 20th. That's when summer is. It just is. That's the definition of it. And this is why it's so confusing to me. Because in America, okay, we don't always just follow exactly June 21st to September 20th. A lot of times we have a holiday that's right in the last Monday of May, and a lot of times we'll use that as the unofficial. We will call it unofficial because we know summer doesn't really start until June 21st. But we have a holiday called Memorial Day at the end of May. And a lot of times we will use that to call it the unofficial start of summer. So most people then, therefore, will consider summer to basically be June, July, August. So it's still not technically correct because September is really still most of September is part of summer as well, and not all of June is. But it's close enough. And we do say it's unofficial, whatever. So it's close enough. All right, so why the difference here in Thailand? Okay, well, we're going to explain why in the second half. But first we need to understand what creates the seasons. So a lot of people think that we get summer because we're closer to the sun and winter because we're further away from the sun. That is not true. It does not really have to do with distance from the sun. I suppose, given what it does have to do with, that would push you slightly further away from the sun in winter, but not really. That's not the difference. It is the axis that the Earth spins on. Now, what do I mean, the axis that it spins on? Okay, so the Earth spins, right? That creates our days, not our seasons, but our days. The Earth spins. We go around in a circle once every 24 hours. We spin on our axis, and then we orbit around the sun. Well, our axis is not straight up and down aligned with our orbit. It is a tilted axis. Now, this gets this starts to get a little confusing. This is hard to think about. Okay, it's really simple. We are tilted. So, when we're on one side of the sun, and it takes a whole year to go around the sun, right? Well, that's our orbit around the sun. So, because we're tilted, during half the year, the northern part is tilted away from the sun, and the southern part is tilted towards the sun. And then when you get around to the other side of the sun, because you're going around the sun in a whole year, when you get around to the other side of the sun, the northern part of the Earth is tilted toward the sun, and the southern part is tilted away. Now, if you think about the Earth like being a ball, now imagine you shining a flashlight at a ball. You shine it directly at the ball, okay? The light's quite bright. Now, if you tilt, now you're actually going to probably have to tilt the flashlight, which is not really how it's going to really work, because that would be like tilting the sun. No, it's the Earth's axis, but it's the same physical process here. So if you tilt the flashlight, you'll notice that the light spreads out and it's not as bright. Well, that's what's happening to folks who are tilted away from the sun. The sunlight gets basically spread thinner, so there's less heat and warmth from the sun coming in. Now, actually, the process of how that gets turned into heat, that's confusing as well. We're not going to get into that. Let's just say that there's less heat that comes in when you're tilted away from the sun, whereas the side of the Earth that's tilted towards the sunlight's hitting that more directly. Okay? So that is what's creating winter and summer. If you're tilted away from the sun, the sunlight's kind of spread out, it's weaker, so you're not getting as much warmth and heat, so it's colder. When you're aimed at the sun, when you're tilted towards the sunlight is more direct, it's stronger, it's hotter. Those are the seasons, winter and summer. And then we have spring and fall, which we don't really have much of here in the tropics. You don't really hear people talk about spring and fall very much. That's more when you're outside the tropics. And those are just the two seasons where you transition. You go from one to the other. So you go from winter to spring to summer to fall to winter. So spring and fall are just the transition months, the transition seasons. All right, so we're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back, we will discuss why Thailand shifts what they call summer, even though that's not really technically summer. We will discuss why, and the reason I explain the way we get the seasons is because it has everything to do with that. It has everything to do with what's creating the seasons. All right, so let's take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. All right, so we're talking today about why the summer is considered different as far as the dates here in Thailand versus America. And we really need to explain Thailand because technically Thailand and the U.S. are both north of the center line of the Earth, the equator. And so technically, summer is June 21st to September 20th. It just is. That's the definition. You can't just make it March, April, and May because you say so. Of course, that is also why I did mention at the beginning, it is kind of a cultural thing. Because you can make it March, April, and May in your culture. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying Thai people are wrong to say summer is March, April, and May. No, that's fine. All I'm saying is it's more of a cultural adaptation, more of a cultural, it's not really even a belief, but you are interpreting what's going on with the weather. And we will explain that in just a minute here. I have this in all my notes here. We'll explain that. You're interpreting what's going on with the weather rather than using kind of the official June 21st to September 20th dates. Instead, we consider it March through May here. So, the reason is what I explained before about how that tilt affects the sunlight on the Earth. Think about how the sun would be shining as that tilt changes. Now, the tilt itself doesn't change. I mean, it does slightly, but not significantly. So we're still spinning on that same axis. But the tilt relative to the sun, because we're going around the sun, so the way the sun is shining on the Earth, as far as where it is relative to that tilt, is going to change. So what you need to understand is that, and this might be the tricky part, you might have to actually draw a diagram of this, look it up online, you may have to think about it a little bit, but where the sun is shining directly overhead at noon in the afternoon is going to shift because of that tilt. It can go, and it ranges between 22.5 degrees below the equator to 22.5 degrees north of the equator. Now, I say 22.5 degrees. That might confuse some of you. I'm not sure how well you know geography, but it is basically the Earth is 90 degrees from the center to the North Pole and 90 degrees from the center to the South Pole. So that's just the entire range of the Earth from north to south. And so the Earth, the sun, will shine directly anywhere between 22.5 degrees on either side. And this is why Thailand's summer is considered to be earlier in the year. Let me explain it. Okay? So Bangkok itself is at about 13 degrees north latitude. So what that means is the sun goes to the north of us, and it passes over Bangkok twice. Just to make this simple, we'll say that Thailand, since Thailand stretches north and south of Bangkok, we'll say that Thailand is at 11.25 degrees north of the equator. Okay, that's getting complicated. Why 11.25? Easy, just because it's half of 22.5. We're just going to say it's halfway. So the sun will reach the equator as it's moving north on late in April, and it'll reach its furthest north part late in June. And so, since Bangkok is in the middle of that, oh, and by the way, it will then come back down and reach the equator again in late September. That's why it's June 21st to September 20th. So since Bangkok is halfway in between there, it means the sun is going to pass over Bangkok in May and August. All right? Early in both of those months. Early in May, early in August. So maybe you think this still doesn't make sense. Because then shouldn't it be maybe May, June, and July? That's the peak of when the sun's kind of over us. Passes us May, passes us August. Although August, it's early in August, so okay. So maybe you say May, June, July. Or maybe we have 4 months of summer, May, June, July, August. Why not? We don't really get fall or spring here very much. So why is it March, April, May? Okay. So this is a second reason which further shifts things a little bit. And that is that by June and July, we're getting into the rainy season. And that can help cool things off, especially in the afternoon. So the hottest 3 months end up being April, May, and June, or March, April, May, something like that. March and June are pretty similar. It depends how much rain is starting in June. But it's perhaps March, April, and May. Okay? Those are the hottest 3 months. Meanwhile, while Bangkok is getting the sun passing over it in early May for the first time, and the first time the sun passes over it is the most important, because again, during that second time, which is early August, it's already the rainy season. So it's probably not going to get as hot. So it's really that first one. So in early May, the sun passes directly over. Meanwhile, in America, the sun doesn't get to its nearest point, furthest north, until June 21st. And it does take some time for the warmth to kind of build up. So they continue warming all the way through July and maybe even into early August. Sometimes August can have our hottest days. Sometimes July can in the U.S. So the bottom line here is that the sun is closer to America later in the year. Sort of, because again, the sun also passes back over Thailand a second time later than America in August. But again, that's during the rainy season, which is going to help keep temperatures down a little bit, especially in the afternoon. So once again, that first time that the sun is passing over Thailand is the important one. And that occurs a month and a half sooner in Thailand than the sun's closest approach to America. Still doesn't account for everything. We're still talking about early May. So shouldn't the summer maybe then be April, May, June? Yeah, but even in June, you're already starting to get into the rainy season. Heck, sometimes in May you do a little bit, but especially June, you're starting to get into the rainy season. So again, that March temperature sometimes is a little higher than the June temperature. So our hottest months are March, April, May. And that is why we call that summer. Now, I think that seems obvious, right? Summer's the hottest 3 months of the year. But it is interesting because technically that's not summer. Also, because you have the rainy season effect, it doesn't seem like it should be summer until you factor that in. When we talked about the axis and how that controls when the sun moves over Bangkok, you can sort of see how the summer would be a little bit earlier here because you got the sun passing directly over Thailand in May. And it doesn't get to its closest point for the U.S. until June 21st. So, okay, you can sort of see why it would be a little earlier here. But like I said, that doesn't account for everything. So you kind of have to take into account both factors. So I know it seems obvious that it's March, April, and May because this program is airing in Thailand. You are Thai. You know when summer is. It's March, April, May. But it's just interesting to understand why. because technically, officially, your summer is no different than the summer in America. It's June 21st to September 20th. But because Thailand is at around 10 to 15 degrees latitude, 10 to 15 degrees above the equator, north of the equator, and because of the rainy season, we push that hottest weather earlier in the year to March, April, May. And that's the reason for the difference in our seasons. Again, technically, our seasons are the same. North of the equator, June 21st to September 20th is summer. And December 21st to March 20th is winter. It just is. That's just the official definition because we're north of the equator. So yes, part of March, which we consider summer here, is technically part of winter. I know, that's weird. That's strange. But again, that's the reason for the difference. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you for joining us for today's An American in Thailand program. Let me reach out to any young people out there who are going to be heading off to university soon and ask them to consider our university here, Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. Please stay with us and tune back in next week for another interesting episode. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.